Howdy, howdy, everyone. Welcome to a new episode of Between Two Wolves. I'm here with Fangride, and we're going to be walking through the Fallen Forum as we ask all the good old questions. Fang, how are you today?
I'm doing wonderful. How about yourself, Mob Ross?
Thank you. I'm just very, very well. We got a whole bunch of happy accidents happening, and that's just always a delight.
It's always the dream.
Absolutely. Is there anything you'd like to say before we get moving?
No, I'm just excited to do this. I feel like I was second place for like 6 weeks running. So.
That was kind of uncanny. Someone always
It was amusing.
An interest spiked for someone else.
For sure.
So,
I mean, good for them.
Yeah, good for them. We've had a bunch of great interviews. Thank you for your patience.
Yeah, absolutely.
So first off, why don't you tell us what all you do here on the team?
Quests and lore, mostly. I've been with the team really since pretty much the beginning, and I've been writing quests, writing books, writing lore text and all of that goodness really from the get-go. That was my initial interest. I've done a little bit of building here and there, and I was definitely leading design on this dungeon, but most of the builds in here were not mine, because people are better than me. And yeah, that's what I do.
How did you get started with the team itself? And this
so
the greater CTMC question. So why don't you talk about CTMs in general and your history with it? Because you have quite a history.
I'm probably one of the longest tenured members of the CTM community around, so this is a long story. I'll try and make it brief. So
would you like to start walking as we do?
Yeah, let's start strolling, I guess, while we're doing that. But many moons ago, back around the time that Vex released like the very first CTM map, I was very active on the Minecraft forums, like the official Minecraft forums that Curse hosts that nobody uses anymore. I was very active on there. I used to make adventure maps, and so I released stuff on there and just started getting, I guess, better at the game and started reaching a point where I was like, wow, this stuff's getting kind of boring. Like vanilla survival is really not that exciting anymore, so what else is there? And stumbled across the Super Hostile series, which at the time was like just Sea of Flames 2.
When you say making adventure maps, how do you mean?
Like I made puzzle and adventure maps. I made a map called what was it called? The Forest of Silence, I think is what it was called. And it was a like combat adventure map where, you were in adventure, or well, I guess you were not. Gosh, was there adventure mode back then?
I don't think adventure mode existed.
I think it was, I had some game rule in place where you couldn't break or place blocks at the time. Like this was beta 1.7, something like that. And you would solve puzzles. You were not in peaceful because I would have mobs spawning at various points, and there was actually combat sections. But it was straight up like an adventure map, puzzles and all of that goodness. It was pretty fun. There was like a maze in the water, and I remember one part where you had to like battle mobs and knock their drops onto pressure plates in order to open a door. Just stuff like that. Yeah, my favorite one, I actually used to be okay at Redstone, and I had a whole puzzle made where you would press a button and it would trigger another block to like move above another one once we got pistons, and you had to basically play almost like Dance Dance Revolution or something, but with poking buttons to maintain the sequence that it was spitting out. It was a lot of fun. And while I was doing that for a while, I ended up joining a mapping team called the Nox Crew. They hit it pretty big, and they're actually still pretty popular. They make maps for Bedrock Edition now and sell those. They're doing very well there. But they made maps like Paladin's Quest, which got played by the Yogscast. And they made a map series called Joffrey's Chamber, and I built and wrote on those.
Cool.
And then, I was very active on the Minecraft forums. Got interested in Vex maps and just started looking into stuff there, and after a while I started making my own CTM map that has never been released. But people in the community probably know the name Septum Memorial, because I am very good at advertising, but not so good at releasing. And I did release a couple mini-maps. I led the project Pantheon and its follow-up. Divinity's End was not me, though. I was way too busy. Did not have the time, but I hear that the team did a great job on that. I have a very long history with CTMs. I ended up being a moderator on those forums for a while and spent a lot of time on the Vex thread and stuff. Been around in that for a while. So when the community started getting a little bit bigger. We started a Skype thread, Skype group for it, just to like talk outside of the forums. And Skype sucks, and so we moved over to Discord once Discord started being a thing. And yeah, the rest is kind of history from there. A bunch of us on the Discord started talking about rivaling Vex's SHO. Is that, yeah, Super Hostile Online. We were like, I wonder if we could do this better. And so people like Rock and Kaladin and Chip started that, and then I got kind of drawn into it from there. It was kept like absurdly secret. We were not allowed to talk about it in the open at all. Like even just doing beta testing was really hard because we had to pick people that would not like just, snitch about it. And it did actually get leaked at one point, but we managed to play it off as if it was a joke. I don't know how we pulled that off. But when it got leaked, it was right around April Fool's, and I managed to convince people that it was actually a Pantheon MMO called Pantheon Line.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it was classic.
That's great.
He got mad at me when I did that because he thought that it was completely spoiling Monumenta, but nobody understood what it was until later. So I think we actually got really lucky with it. Yeah, Pantheon Line, that was a classic.
Well,
and so really
with April Fools.
Yeah. I do. From the get-go, I just was kind of involved in the writing and stuff. One of the earliest things that I helped write was A Pirate's Life with Levin. Kaladin and I made that together. And then the very first quest that I solo wrote was not Bane of the Bakers, A Dish to Die For. Chip made it, Bane of the Bakers. Great. Yeah, Dish to Die For was my first solo quest. And then from there, that was so successful that I was told, hey, I know people have been talking about wool quests for a while. You want to make a wool quest? I'm like, yeah, I want to make a wool quest. And so I made Winds of War. And then I made Beasts of Men. And then Roots of the Plague. And then I got Krondus and Walter and Overnick on the team, and we started kind of working on those as a team. And then we made the rest of the wool quests, and then I just kind of kept going. Like, we just kept adding quests, and I kept writing lore, and then the Crimson King storyline kind of came around by accident. And once Kaladin kind of stepped away from the team, I ended up in a position where I'm mostly, I wouldn't say like fully in charge of the lore, but I'm definitely like our resident lore expert, and I take up a lot of my time on that.
Absolutely. Do you want to, rather than do this at the end, because Krondus kind of touched on the Society of Owls and the RuneScape thing, do you want to talk about your history with MMO and story and lore?
Yeah.
Set the ground.
Oh man, yeah. My MMO history is vast. I've been an avid RuneScape player since I was like 13, 14. I still play, and I'm like maxed in completionists, and I'm a mega nerd. Like, yeah. So RuneScape is definitely a major inspiration for me when it comes to storytelling and writing. They just always have had such a way of just kind of having these really novel, interesting, interconnected stories, and finding ways to draw elements that seemed just standalone or less interesting, and then pulling them into one big thread. And for a while, I know Krondus and Walter and Overnick from our podcasting days. I have been, for a while, I was with a different podcast, and Society of Owls channel was kind of a follow-up to that one as that one died off. But we've been RuneScape podcasters for a ridiculously long time.
Nice.
So probably find traces of it online, but Society of Owls is the YouTube channel that really Krondus and I ran. We don't really upload to it anymore because Krondus doesn't play RuneScape much anymore, and I'm so busy on Monumenta and other gaming things that I don't really feel like I need to do a long-form podcast on RuneScape anymore. But I sure did love it, and it's a lot of fun to just kind of talk for hours about my opinion on the story and just theorize. So now being on the other side of that, where I'm the one writing story and watching people theorize, it's really entertaining. It really is. Our podcast had a lot of viewers that were writers at Jagex who make RuneScape, and now I understand why. It's a lot of fun.
Sure. So to those of you watching, we need a lore podcast from under.
Please. I would love to watch that. Like, genuine. I will be your only steady watcher, probably, but I will watch every episode.
The challenge has been issued.
Truly.
So, how did you come up with your username?
This one's a fun one. So I was like 11, 12 when I came up with this username, you see. So when I was a kid, there's the series of books called Maximum Ride by James Patterson.
Oh yeah, I know.
It still exists. Like, he's writing this awful sequel series that I have not bothered to touch past the first book, but the first 3 books in the series I think are genuinely really excellent, and they just go downhill from there. But at the time, there were only 2 books out. And there's a character in the series named Fang. Obviously, the name Fang is taken everywhere. And so I stuck the name Ride onto the end of it because that's one of the main character, Max's last name. So I got Fangride. That's it. That's the whole story.
You know, that's funny. I read those books, at least the first 3, and I've been saying your name for years, and I've never put that together until
that's so funny.
I knew Fang, I knew Max. That's
a good
hilarious.
thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have a couple other usernames online, most commonly a Masket, but that's a name of a character in RuneScape. Back in probably 2013, 14, I got really lucky, and this username of an in-game character who's pretty awesome opened up as an available username, and I snagged it immediately, and I've been kind of known by that name since in the RuneScape community.
Very nice.
But yeah, Fangride's mostly what you see.
That's cool. What is the piece of content that you've helped with that you dislike the most?
Ooh, that's an interesting one. Gosh, it's got to be I'm like thinking of what quest I'm like least happy with. I think it's probably got to be Soul of the Forest. Not that I think it's a bad quest, but I think that it's clunkier than any of the other quests in the series, and we made some choices that I think didn't quite hit the mark.
What are those?
Specifically, I was really excited about all of Bhairavi's like assistants and stuff, and I was trying to push them into those quests, and we killed one of them off in that quest. People did not care.
It was very sudden.
Yeah, it was very sudden, and at the time, during some of the writing, we had wanted to build them up a little bit more, and we've actually since done a little bit more building up of them, not just in quests, but we added a few of them to dungeons, so they show up a little bit more. And I just kind of regret the path that we took on that. I feel like it was indeed very sudden, and it didn't feel very earned. And I like that we're saying this while standing right next to one of Bhairavi's assistants. Hi, Keller. But definitely, I think it's the one in the Wool series quest that felt the most like a letdown to me. I didn't feel like it hit all the marks that we wanted to hit. And just like Yellow, it's the one that I would most rework if I had the time to rework it.
So, how do you feel about the stealth section in Roots of the Plague? Because that's what I would have expected.
I do like that section, but I also didn't make that. Krondus was the one who made the mechs for that, so I don't really feel like I have any ability to say, like, oh, I'm not happy with that. I don't think it works perfectly now, but I think at the time it was definitely the best solution that we had to make it work. And I'm not going to sit here and criticize the work that Krondus put into it. That's not my place.
That's very gracious of you. I'm sure
he did a good job with it. I think it was super cool. And at the time, fantastic. Now I think we have ways to do it that would be better, and I would love if we were able to do that, but for what we had at the time, A+.
Hooray.
Also, it's a really cool scene, even if it's a little clunky now, like,
it is.
Entering far, and it's like moody and nighttime, and there are golems everywhere, like, do not approach, you are not allowed to be here, feels really spooky.
It does.
Sure sets a mood.
What piece of Monumenta content is your favorite and your least favorite, independently of whether you've worked on it?
Ooh, I am a really... This is going to be weird. So my least favorite piece of Monumenta content was Cyan. I hated Cyan at first. I think it was my least favorite dungeon out of every dungeon we've ever released. But we did some tweaks to it, like changing some of the cave walls to make it a little more possible to move through. And it's very quickly become one of my favorites to play now.
How about that?
Yeah, so props to everybody who worked on that. I whined incessantly in the dev core, don't get me wrong. Like, I really did not like this dungeon, and I think some fantastic work has gone into it to improve it immensely. Beyond that, though, I would say least favorite content is probably Treasures of Viridia. I don't really think it lives up to the goals of the content, where it's just everybody put on your speed sets, run around, go find it. I don't know. I never found that very engaging or enjoyable.
That's fair.
My favorite piece of content, whether I worked on it or not, I'm going to give it kind of a two-way tie. I think it's Teal and Forum itself. Like, I'm an addict for Forum. I love this dungeon. but Teal's void section or like the void aspect of it makes it such an enjoyable dungeon. Like it feels like one of the dungeons where you can really like express your skill as a player and not feel like you're constantly on the edge of your seat in danger because of the environment. Like you can use it to your advantage and really enjoy yourself while you're doing it. It's brilliantly designed and it's an absolute blast to play.
Absolutely. If you were Dictator Fangride for one day, and you could do, or forget the time, if you could make changes, sweeping changes to Monumenta with no resistance and full cooperation from the team, what would you do?
I would add more MMO-like skills. This comes from my RuneScape background, but things like crafting or fishing or woodcutting, stuff like that, where you actually like level them up as you play and you get benefits and advantages for doing so. I think that would be really different and unique, and I think it could definitely add things to the game. Especially on the crafting level, everything is... we're playing Minecraft, and we don't do a lot of crafting. We do a lot of trading.
Yeah. Would you say that's one of the things that's kind of been lost from the CTM?
Yeah, I would say so. Like we've definitely disabled a lot of vanilla crafting and have pushed away from having players make their gear as opposed to finding some materials and trading it with an NPC. Mm-hmm. And if we had a way to like custom craft it ourselves instead of having to work with an NPC, I think I would love that way more. Not to say that the system is bad. Like again, it's kind of that system of we're making the best with what we have available. But man, I wish we were a little more involved in the making of our gear.
Sure.
Like where we find a recipe and we put it together ourselves. To go along with that, actually, back in the very early, like, pre-beta days of Monumenta, we actually did have a bunch of drops in the game that were meant to be crafting items. I don't know if there's many people who were around at that time, but, like, we straight up had mobs that would drop... I think there were, like, 12 different items that you would get, and the plan was eventually to turn those into crafting gear. You would be able to craft stuff, upgrade stuff, and make potions and other objects, and, eventually, instead of doing that, we just removed them because we were never able to get it quite where we wanted. But I was always just smitten with that idea.
Perfectly reasonable. Before we move completely on, since you mentioned this is your favorite to play, which is your favorite of the three sections?
This one right here that we're over top of. Or do you mean the side branches?
Yeah, like Conservatorium.
Oh, my favorite is Conscriptorium, which is a very unpopular answer, I know. I'm a big fan of kind of that, like, cramped quarter library theme. Like the theme itself is already my favorite, but the fact that it's so like cramped and you're just fighting in these really narrow corridors and mobs are popping out of walls through hidden passages. I just love how mystical the whole place feels, and trying to deal with the hidden passages all over just feels like you're discovering a secret every time you play through it. Tatsu was the lead builder on it, and he did an absolutely phenomenal job. It is everything I could have ever dreamed of and more.
Very reasonable. Who is your favorite other team member?
Oh, man. I have so many people that I like on the team. This is really tough. Gosh, I'm going to give a couple people as an answer just to kind of cheat on this one.
That's fine.
I shout out to WonderSim. I know she and I don't talk a whole lot, but she is just a really wonderful, reasonable, friendly person and is so unbelievably talented at building. Like, she like sneezes and something incredible comes out every single time. It's ridiculous. I have so much respect for her and her talent. It's incredible. Also, just, I mean, these people have been my friends for over a decade, so people like Krondus and Walter and Avernic are just some of my favorite people. We have managed to remain friends for such a long time, and I'm just always in awe of the content that they make. Krondus literally applied as a builder, and sorry, buddy, he cannot build. But
did you watch his interview?
I have not, actually. I have not sat down to do that. Did he basically say the same thing?
Yeah, so I asked him, what do you do? And he said, everything but building. I'm a terrible builder, but somehow I've done everything but what I applied for.
Yep.
Yeah. So.
But he's an excellent writer. I always love working with him on writing content, but his technical mastery has just gotten so incredible. He started out with nothing but like basic command knowledge and has really managed to create a lot of really special things, even if I don't like TOV. Just from like a technical standpoint, it's really impressive. And he creates all of these things. Like, even with Study in Crimson's reward, the Crimson contract is made entirely using scripted quests and commands. It's really impressive. I'm just constantly in awe of the stuff he creates. And then Walter is such a talented writer. He doesn't write a whole lot. Like, he's very, very particular in the stuff that he works on, and it takes a while to come to completion, but when it does, it's always fantastic. He accidentally completely changed the shape of the Region 2 main story by coming in with a quest out of nowhere, and Grandis and I were so impressed with it that we were like, yo, this needs to be part of the main story, and we completely shifted the direction of the story to integrate it, and I think it really improved Chapter 2 of the storyline overall.
Which quest was it?
An Unlikely Partnership, I believe is the name of it. Yeah. Where you get the whole big party at Mistport. That quest was turned in as a side quest where it was supposed to just be the first Duchess quest, and it still is. But, like, he had so many great character moments and so many interesting characters introduced that we had to make it like a showcase. This felt like a really core piece of story to us, and it had to be part of the main story. We had to use those ambassadors. They just felt so strikingly characterized so quickly, and we were really interested in making them a part of it.
It was really good.
He always impresses me when he turns in stuff. And he's the master of feedback and testing. He and I did like a mega test mode for Study in Crimson before it came out. And I think it's like the least buggy quest we've shipped in a really long time. He goes over things with just such an eye for detail that he blows me away every time. I couldn't do it without him.
Awesome. I love to hear that sort of kind of praise. And yeah, Walter's great. How bad is your caffeine addiction?
I am currently chugging a espresso from Starbucks, so bad. Like, literally, my pause there was so that I could take a drink of coffee.
That'll work. Do you have any thoughts about the Deep Dark or any experimental snapshots coming out and your plans for it for Monumenta?
I'm interested in the blocks. I think the Warden could make a really cool mini-boss, but I haven't dug too deep into it. Since I'm not really a technical guy, even if I do work on some mobs from time to time, I don't know, I just think it looks cool. I'm interested from like a vanilla standpoint, like what they plan to do with it. It looks like they have plans to go further than just the Deep Dark, but I don't play a lot of vanilla Minecraft these days.
That's been a running trend with these interviews.
Yep.
Would you like to take me to another section you'd like to show off?
Yes, absolutely. Let's fly on over there.
I'll just follow you.
We'll go over into the labs, the growth chambers area that Nova built. This place is so cool. It didn't even start as a part of Forum. It was actually a dungeon that Nova was working on. If I could get out of this tree. There we go. This was a different, like a little like solo dungeon project Nova was working on the build shard like several years ago. And it was ice themed. Very icy and...
How about that?
As I was working on Forum, I was talking to Nova because he was interested in just helping out with the build in general. And I was flying around on the build shard one day and I saw this and I was like, Nova, is this yours? And he goes, yeah. I'm like, what are you planning to do with it? And he goes, nothing. Like, it's I haven't worked on it in ages. I'm like, do you want to like maybe find a way to palette swap it or expand on it and we can put it in TFF? And he goes, yeah. And so he started just re-palette swapping it at first, but eventually started adding to it. And we got a lot of these like little mini side labs and stuff. They're so detailed. I love the way that just like the theme shifts really interestingly in each one. But let me see if I can find the room that really stood out to me because I know what it looked like before and now after. It's just crazy.
Sure. As we go, consider what is something that you've regretted from Monumenta. It could be something that you've done that you wish you could undo or that you haven't gotten to do and you're sad that you can't or haven't.
If we had done this interview 2 weeks ago, my answer would have been study. Now it's study part 2. But that has been literally hanging over me for a very long time. I was really scared study was going to be a SEPTA memorial again, where I'm a bit of a perfectionist, and so I really do not like to settle on something being done until I'm like super satisfied with it. And for a piece of story as complicated as study has been, I was not ever going to be satisfied with it, I swear.
Well, congrats on getting it out.
Yeah, I mean, it's not all the way out, but it's some of the way out now, and that's big.
Yeah.
Half of it is out. for anybody who was wondering, there is only 2 parts. There will not be a part 3. It's study part 1 and study part 2. I don't think I've confirmed that anywhere, so here you go. But yeah, it went through so many drafts. Like I don't even think you guys understand. The release version that you guys see now of part 1 is the 6th or 7th major complete rewrite of the direction of the story. Who the heads are in the memory vault changed like 8 times. I have been so unsatisfied with the different directions that we've taken it, and I'm finally so happy with the story that I have written.
In terms of time spent on study, how much was writing and building and mechs, and how would you have broken that up in terms of the development process?
Writing-wise has been the majority of like my time on it, where the current script of the quest, when put into Google Docs, is over 18 pages long, which for one of our quests is huge. Like, our quests are usually not more than 5 or 6 pages. This quest is massive, which is why I put it into 2 parts in the first place. But with all the revisions and all the rewrites, I mean, anybody that knows when I first talked about study was like 3 or 4 years ago. And what was study became Memories of Battle, and then really just started like working on it and then not being happy with it, and then getting sidetracked onto other major things like Unmasked and lots of the R2 main story like Bleeding Proof. So a lot of my time wasn't directly spent on study, but study was that thing where, all right, I've got a spare minute, I'm not working on a major project right now, let's try and get some more study done.
Nice.
And then a couple of months ago, it just kind of was like, hey, I think I'm happy with this. I think this is good. And had some other people look over it and was getting the same reception of like, this is really great, this feels like it's getting the pieces into place. And then reached out to a couple people about building. We have had that the new FAR, or the old FAR, I guess, on the build server for literally years. Noel, when they were on the team, was one of the original builders of that. A couple other team members recently took some time to go in and make it a little more inhabitable and just like check the place out a little better, make it easier to navigate. And then Nover, who is just... This man is endlessly an incredible resource and incredible help to just getting story elements into the game with really beautiful builds as well. Dedicated, a couple of weeks to be like, hey, I have... What builds do you need and what can I provide for the quest? And so a majority of the builds that you see in Study of Crimson Part 1, Nover, really just painstakingly and lovingly built for the quest. It started with the little fountain sequence where you meet Sashura as Susanoo, and I had just taken a copy of Fountain and was like, I might just like greenify this or something, and then I was just like, you know what, on a whim, let's just ask in, chat and be like, hey, anybody interested in like sprucing this up a little more? And Nover's like, yeah, sure, what do you need? Gave him something, he goes, all right, I'll talk to you in a couple hours. And I come back a few hours later, and he had just this beautiful, luscious build. Ugh. And he is also working on some builds for Part 2 when he's available. I'm not trying to eat his time, but he did... Any time that I really had like a build request, he was like, cool, what can I do? It's not too huge, right? Nope, great, here we go. So that definitely took a while. Mechanisms-wise, it was pretty decent. Quest-wise, it's not really a very mechs-heavy quest. It's got a lot of teleporting, but teleporting is one of the most basic Minecraft commands you can have. A lot of the time was really just spent on getting like all the quest components in place and making sure the quest compass worked and all the teleports worked and sent you where they needed to, when they needed to send you there. A lot of complexity there. I have a Google or an Excel spreadsheet that's like 60, 70 pieces long, just tracking the different scoreboards and locations the player could be and where they need to be. It was a lot. But
Nice.
yeah, it took a couple of months to get Part 1 ready, and Part 2 is well on the way. Once I stopped playing Elden Ring and Guild Wars 2.
Was there ever a time that you've been either overwhelmed or tempted to give up on a project entirely, even scrapping a whole lot of effort?
Well, I mean, yeah, with study. Like I said, I've scrapped drafts on drafts of study multiple times.
Did Did you ever feel overwhelmed in all that process, or at any point in?
Yeah, that's why I've made like 20 other quests since I announced it. Every time that I was like, boy, I'm not sure I can handle this anymore, I'm like, cool, that project looks cool, I'm gonna go work on that. Huh, why don't I just take on a whole dungeon? That's how TFF came to be. So yeah, it definitely was that quest where every time I would get overwhelmed by it, I would start procrastinating it by working on something else. And then oddly, many of those other projects came along really smoothly. I think I wrote all of the text for Unmasked in like a single afternoon, and then got it coded with like 2 days before Teal's launch.
Yeah,
pretty cool.
I remember that. That was cool.
I couldn't believe how well that quest... Like, I had no expectations for that, but everything just kind of fell into place. Yeah. Ended up being pretty good. I was pretty happy. Just, it worked. I mean, it helped that we had a really solid foundation on Teal's story from Kaladin's writing years ago. So that was one where it was like, I know what the end goal needs to be. What story elements do I feel need to be tied up before we get there? And then I just did that.
It was really good.
I'm so satisfied with that one. I can't say that about everything I write, but that one just felt like it really just came into being fully formed. And that one was also I don't want to work on study right now, I'm going to make this instead.
That's cool. Yeah. We got a cluster of CTM related questions.
Let's
from the
do
patients.
it.
I should have put these at the start, but I forgot they were here.
That's okay.
One, what is your favorite CTM map?
Monstrosity by Cold Fusion Gaming, which recently got a really good remaster, and you should go play that too.
Oh, nice. For what version?
I'm not sure off the top of my head, actually. Probably 1.17, maybe 16.
Did Cold Fusion do it?
Yes, he did it and actually added to it. He took one of his mini maps, also really great, I believe called Frostburn, and added it into the overall map.
Cool. Do you still keep up with new CTM map releases?
Every once in a while. I mean, I'm an admin over on the CTMC, and so I check them out from time to time. I play renders maps whenever they come out, for sure. Let me find the name of another one that I played recently that was pretty cool. Bad with names sometimes, because there's so many just... As one of the guys who names maps not in English, there's a lot of maps that just have names that are hard to remember. Give me just a moment to pull that.
No rush.
Hello. I couldn't find the name of the map I was thinking of, but it was a really cool, like, randomly generated one that came out recently. I was really impressed with the technical nature of it, and I had a lot of fun with it.
So if you know that, throw it up in the comments.
Tell me. I'm sure I'll find it and tell Ari later, but can't remember it right now. But we're in the conscriptorium now.
Nice. So this one, I'm not entirely sure what was meant by it, but you would probably understand it more.
Okay.
How do you feel about the direction of the more modern CTM maps?
They are way more complicated, but I think it's a good thing. I don't think it's as new user-friendly as it used to be, but I think that standards have gone up significantly, and I think overall for the genre that is definitely a good thing. I think it pushes people to be more creative, it pushes people to learn more technical systems, and it means that the quality of your average CTM map that you go out and find is going to be higher than it was 5 years ago. A lot of the time you would see a map with a really cool picture and you go and download it, and the majority of the map is really boring, no balance, with one really cool build somewhere. But I think these days, the majority of maps that you're going to find that people are actually playing and talking about are really accomplished maps. I think the accessibility of more complicated systems has become better too. And I think it's just a positive direction for the genre that makes it a lot more interesting. And also, not necessarily new player friendly in terms of like playing the maps, because they're hard, but it's definitely more like presentable on a general basis. I think it's really cool. I love where the genre has gone, and even like cool offshoots of it, like Monumenta, is impressive and interesting and weird.
For sure. Aside from Render, are there any map makers you follow that you're a particular fan of?
Cold Fusion Gaming has always been, I mean, not just a buddy, like he and I have known each other for a pretty long time as well. But I also just think he's such a brilliant map maker, and he makes such strange and surreal environments. 3.2 doesn't really make maps anymore, but the Vinyl Fantasy series is one of my all-time favorites for CTMs. And goodness, I've always loved, the Simulation Protocol series. Such a talented mapper and beautiful series of maps. I know it's not a lot of the like more modern stuff, but my free time is fairly limited as a college graduate with a real adult job, and being in college and being in high school made it a lot easier to sit down and play a lot of CTM maps on the regular that I don't have the time to these days.
For sure. Do you want to tell us what your degree and job are?
Oh yeah, I have a human resources management degree, and I operate a pool and swim school.
Very cool. Any cool stories that go with that?
So many. I teach a lot of kids, and I oversee a lot of kids, but I grew up a swimmer. I've always been around water. I grew up lifeguarding as well as a job, so being still involved in aquatics a decade and a half later is awesome, and just generally love my job. It's really great.
Have you grown gills yet, or do you need like 3 decades for that?
Yeah, they haven't fully formed yet. I've got little flaps, but nothing yet. No air bubbles.
Gotcha. Do you have any cool scars or a story that goes with the scar?
Unrelated to swimming, but I do have a scar on my eyebrow. Just like cuts right through my eyebrow. No hair grows there. I was very little and I was down in my cousin's basement. We were all playing around down there, and I was just sitting on the floor doing like a hidden pictures book or something stupid like that. One of my cousins scared one of my other cousins. She jumps up onto what she thought was a table and turned out to not be a table. It was a workbench with a board sitting on it. She falls down, the board flies through the air, and the corner of it perfectly hits my face as I look up into the air. The corner of it just hits that one spot on my eyebrow, knocks me out cold. They all scream and run, and then I wake up like a minute later, stand up and start walking upstairs, and I'm like, why am I crying? I wasn't crying, there was blood running down my eye. Walk into the kitchen, and like every adult there is like, ah! Like horror show. You know, this little like 7-8-year-old is just walking upstairs, just blood gushing down their face. Rush me to the hospital, and I get stitches, and I just have that scar there ever since.
There we go. You're the first person who's been able to answer yes to that, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
What was your favorite subject in school?
I'm gonna give you guys a guess. It was English.
You're joking.
Love literature and writing in English.
Well, I would feel like a fool giving the follow-up question to that, which, does that influence your development here in Monumental?
Yes, immensely.
So I'm going to twist that question a little bit. What book or work or subject, what aspect of your studies in English most affected your development here?
This might be a little interesting, I guess, but poetry. A lot of like poetry studies. Not really like any specific poet, but like just learning to write poetry and how to make a message count in smaller amount of text has really influenced my writing. I do a lot of our lore text on items in the game, and being able to convey a short story in 2 or 3 sentences that still builds on the lore of your game is a really important skill, and I feel like learning about poetry and short form literature has helped me with that a lot.
And just the technical limitation of having to literally fit it in a box.
Yeah.
That's such a weird restriction.
It really is. And just similarly with poetry, I like to stick poems into the game when I get a chance, just to like flex a little bit. So it's always fun to get to do a super weird formatted poem. We've got a lot of really traditional, like, sonnet or verse, rhyming verse, A, B, C, D kind of poem. And so finding a chance to do one that's a little weirder, a little stranger in its layout is always really, really exciting to me.
Do you have a favorite of your own that stands out off the top of your head?
2 of them that I really like. I did one recently for the Light Gray lore rework. I don't remember exactly what the name of the lore book is, but it's the one that's in that kind of like weird verse format where it pairs things and then has a few sentences about that thing, but still manages to find a way to kind of give it a rhythm. And then I really like the riddle that I wrote for, the Fabled Destiny quest, I believe is the name of it, that sends you to the Mushroom POI. Back when that quest first came out, it had a really basic, not even really rhyming poem, and I asked if I could rewrite it, and so I delivered something that was just really strange and kind of Arthurian. I spent some time studying some Arthurian poetry and legends, just like the way the original Arthur poems were written, and tried to write it in that style, and I think I hit that pretty well. That one was a lot of fun. I really like Arthurian myths. That's a big influence for me in general.
Very nice. Who's your favorite character in the Arthurian mythos?
The Green Knight.
Cool.
Which made me really happy when that movie came out recently. Really highly recommended if you get the chance to watch The Green Knight with Dev Patel. It is absolutely brilliant.
I will bear that in mind.
Highly recommend. It's
audience,
real and dreamy and just everything I could have asked for in an Arthurian adaptation, especially of my all-time favorite Arthurian myth.
Cool. What's the most difficult... They said bug, but it could be just... Yeah, what's the most difficult bug you've encountered here in Monument?
I love this one, because we just found this recently. For the longest time, and I had not been able to figure out why, randomly, in Memories of Battle, people would just...
Yes, that one!
...die in the Mind Phaser room, and I could not figure out why. Just recently, we stumbled across the answer, and the answer is the dang Patron Shrine. Like, what? Seriously, though. So, the Patron Shrine has the health boost option. And it turns out that the way that the Mind Phaser detection is coded is it's looking for you being at max health. Huh. Well, when the Patron Shrine applies the max health thing to you, it actually lowers your max health and then re-raises it. And for half a second, it doesn't consider you to be at max health. And so the mechanism in that room kills you.
That's amazing.
We only found it because a player, I think you contacted them about it or sent them to me, Ari, but we were talking and they were like, yeah, I'm like, God, what could be causing this? I did everything that they did, and I'm sitting there like wearing the same gear, outfitted in the same class, and I was not dying. Could not figure it out. And then a message pops up in chat. Patron health boost ending soon. And I have that disabled. And I'm like, no, there is no way. So I go onto the dev shard, and I drink a health boost potion standing in that room and instantly die. I'm like, there is no way. Like, this has been plaguing us since this quest came out, and we have been unable to figure it out. Could not believe it. It was incredible.
That's a really great anecdote.
One of my all-time favorite like bug discoveries in Monumenta, because I just could not believe that was happening. So funny.
Excellent. What is your most embarrassing personal skill issue moment when playing Monumenta?
Let's see. Boy.
Let's get an aerial view of this. It's a pretty room.
Yeah, this Tatsu killed it in this place. So incredible. I do not have Remnant of the Rose because I suck at ROD. Granted, that's because I am just like hard-coded to play Warrior. It is my class. I love it dearly, and it's not great in ROD sometimes. So, yeah, my skill issue is that I don't have a Remnant because I suck at Rush of Distance.
Skill issue confirmed.
Yeah, skill issue confirmed. Really bad at it.
Since all dev work is voluntary, what keeps you motivated to keep working on things? Especially for as long as you've been doing it.
I have an end goal for the story, and I want to see it. Want to make it happen, you know? Like, I feel like I've started something, and it's important to me that I'm able to finish it. Like I mentioned with Septum, like, I was never able to really finish that map to the standards that I wanted it to be, and so this is a really nice opportunity to be like, hey, I want to see this through to the very end and create something excellent here, and I think overall, even, like, with a team working alongside and with, and, you know, even as we develop the story on the fly, we've got an end goal in mind, and I really think it's important that I help see it through there. This was a vision of mine originally, and I want to see it to the end. Very motivating.
Well said. I like that. And the last patron question.
Yeah.
What do you wish the player base would stop doing? It could be annoying or demotivating.
Oh, man. Goodness. Calling me Fangride. It's F-A-N-G, not F-A-N. Come on, guys.
There you go. I didn't know anyone called you that.
Glacier does it all the time just to be funny, because it is funny.
Well,
but there's so many people...
ridiculous variation of your name.
Oh, yeah. They just assume that it's fan, and then I'm like a fan of a gride, whatever a gride is. I think that's amusing. Like,
ESL
super amusing. For sure. Another thing, though, is just to get more serious. I would love if people remembered that this is a volunteer project. A lot of the time, I think emotions get really high, and because people care so much about the game and they really love it so much, but sometimes it turns into more personal attacks or things get way more heated than they need to be. And I think it's important that we remember that this is people working on the game because they love the game, in the same reason that people get heated about it because they love the game. Just like remember that people are working on this because they care, not because they hate you. We love you guys.
Well said.
Thank you for playing, sticking with us for so long. For those of you listening early, for spending your hard-earned money on helping us keep this crazy dream going for so long. Like the fact that I'm getting to sit here 4 or 5 years later and talk about the quests that I've worked on and the dungeon that I helped bring to life and all of this insanity, and it's incredible, and it's entirely because we have people that care about the game as much as we care about making it.
Very well said. Thank you, Fang.
Yeah. Thank you guys for being here.
Let's move on to another section of the dungeon you'd like to show off, and we'll get to the generic questions.
Sounds good. Let's shift down to the conservatory. It's below us.
All right, here we are. Actually, where are we? Tell us about this area.
We are in the conservatory. This is the only branch of TFF that was not made exclusively by Team Monumenta. Comsog Brickus was the lead builder on this one because we had a decent working relationship for a while, and he's just so good at making plants. Like, look at these. These are gorgeous. And I was chatting with him one day, and he was like, yeah, I'm interested in a weird project. I'm like, hey, you're good at plants? You want to make some plants? And we ended up with this big room especially, but then also that room back there. And then Wondersim came in and did some additional builds and touch-ups to this area as well. It's really something special.
It is.
Fun fact, too, while we're in Forum, if you don't mind me getting into the development side of things a little
go
bit.
for it.
The entirety of this dungeon is based on something from Septum Memorial. Every bit of it. Intersection 2 of that map that I never released was a large castle, and the castle itself was the intersection. Like, there was a middle section that was just kind of a big hub, and then there were several branches that had wolves in them, as you do, and each branch of the Fallen Forum is based on one of them. There was the Shattered Conservatory, aka this part, the conservatory. There was, wait for it, the Conscriptorium, and then there was a place called the Ruins of Memorial, which was in 2 parts. It was more of the castle, but then it was also like a large kitchens and living quarters area, which is where the living quarters themselves came from. And so I just kind of took this thing that I'd had from 10 years ago in Septum Memorial, and it's in Monumenta now, and way better than I ever could have made it.
Sorry, you named a third section there. Living court? Sorry, how do you... I've never heard of this. I don't think it exists.
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm just memeing on you guys. There's only 2 branches.
Right.
Yeah.
Because someone couldn't possibly run it like 12 times and only get those 2, right?
Well, right. I definitely have not gotten it 3 times in a row. And have 3 homesteads. Developer's luck.
Very good. Anything else you'd like to DevCom about Forum while we're on that?
No, I just thought that was a fun fact that I don't think a lot of people know about. The original design of this dungeon all came from Septum.
Nice. Very nice. So are you happy with Forum as a total replacement, like knowing that Septum, I guess, will never come out at this point?
Yes, okay. Immensely so. Like this hits the dream I had of Septum's Intersection 2, which is really like the core build of it anyway for me. Intersection 1 was fairly small, and part of Intersection 1 is in Monumenta, so I'm happy. Fun fact, the Undergrowth POI is from Septum Memorial.
Oh, nice. I don't think I knew that.
Yeah, I don't think most people knew that. But it was the magenta wool of Septum Memorial, and now it's in Monumenta instead. Cool.
So tell me, broad question.
Yeah.
Why is Monumenta special to you?
I don't really think there's another game like it. I mean, there are lots of games similar to it, don't get me wrong. There are lots of MMOs out there and lots of dungeon crawlers and looter shooters and gathering stuff like that, but I think just like the freedom that you get in Monumenta on how to approach situations and being able to break and place blocks really has created something that's really unlike any other game I've ever played. Like, I can't really think of any other MMOs where you run into a situation where you're like, wow, this is too hard and I can't handle this, and the answer is place more blocks. That's really special to me.
It is.
But I also think just having a volunteer team working on this completely out of passion and a community that's drawn to it because it's so unique and different from everything else we've ever played is really a big deal to me, and that community draws a lot of the love from me. Like, I definitely keep doing this because people care. I'm definitely a glutton for feedback and, like, knowing that people are paying attention to my stuff. Which sounds very selfish, but, like, I like...
Well, it's your payment.
Yeah.
You're not getting paid for this. You have to have something.
Exactly. My payment is going, all right, I've made this for you guys. What do you think?
Yep. Which, to take a small aside, because this is relevant to it, that is why leaks are such a big deal to us.
Oh my god, you're so right.
Like, I know some of us might seem a little anal about how, like, why don't you tell us about that? Tell us about teal and leaks, because I think this is a good time to touch on it for those who watch this.
Oh, it hurt. So, I'm not going to name and shame here, but, like, definitely some leaks occurred because of some in-team drama and folks doing things they shouldn't have, but some documents that we'd made pertaining to teal and the direction of the story got out privately and started spreading. And it hurt the motivation of the team really, really badly. Like, people were so excited about this, even, like, from the planning of the comic with the reveal of Cal not being Calder, and it was actually Callum Herring, and Max was Calder the whole time. Spoilers. That was a reveal that we had built up to with the intention of releasing the comic the day of the release of Teal, where it would be two-pronged, like, you as a character in game are shocked by this reveal, and you as the reader of the comic are shocked by this reveal, and it's the same reveal but in two different ways. And I feel like some of that really got badly hit by the leaks. The whole reveal of there being a teal wool, like, even in the quest we build up this idea of you're going to find a blue wool, and it's not blue, it's another wool that we had no idea existed at all. And then it gets destroyed. It was huge! And I think a lot of those leaks definitely hurt, like, some of the excitement going into it. There were people that went into it just talking about a teal wool, and I'm like, you guys shouldn't know about that yet! Shut up! And so I think since then, it's definitely, like, worked out. I feel like we had a better handle on leaks since then, but we've also gotten a little more secretive, which I suppose is for the best. TFF definitely had, like, a few small leaks, but we kind of managed to meme them out of existence, I guess. I mean, the whole olive wool being involved in this dungeon in the first place was me brutally murdering a meme. The idea of an olive wool or a bookshelf wool had been such a long-running gag in the community, and I don't know why people picked the color olive, but, like, genuinely, people just joked about there being an olive wool and it was a bookshelf wool. And TFF was not going to have a wool at all in the original drafts. There was not a boss, there was not a wool. This was going to be a strike before we had strikes. The plan was a kind of big overworld room, you grab a key, you run a branch, you win. And then, as I was writing the story for it, I just had this silly idea of, like, what if we murder the olive wool meme and put it into this dungeon? But, like, it's not a real wool. It's like it's a manufactured wool. And then, like, the more we talked about it, it was like, this is actually not a bad idea. This could actually progress the story in an interesting, meaningful way. Let's do it! And so, anytime there was, like, olive wool, bookshelf wool talk, we were able to kind of quash the small leaks that had gotten out by just going, yeah, guys, that's a meme, that's hilarious, you guys keep talking about this, I love it. One of these days we definitely have to make fun of it in some way. Then it comes out, and I remember Warwolf specifically being like, wait, olive wool, what? And it was great. It was so good.
Between this and Pantheon Online, you're like a disinformation expert.
It's a problem.
Pantheon Online.
I mean, and then at the end of the day, too, I think one person outside of the team knew that Study was coming when it was coming.
Well, your Discord status was it for a while. What do you mean?
Yeah, no, I mean, like, Study Part 1 was coming the week that it was.
Oh, yeah.
Like, yes, Study in Crimson was announced, and people are aware of its existence, and my Discord status was definitely related to study, but like nobody knew that I'd split the quest into parts.
Mm-hmm.
Nobody knew it was coming the day it was coming. Like I didn't put it in the change logs on purpose because I wanted it to be a surprise. And so the literal only person who knew it was coming was Noelle, because I asked them to lock the Betting and Crimson thing in case anybody leaked anything. That was it. And they're also on the RP team, so they were a helpful resource in making sure that there were textures for a few things.
Sure.
So that was a big deal. I was actually like stunned that I managed to get through releasing parts of study without any leaks happening from it, because of how many people have seen the script over the different scripts over the years, but somehow it made it, and I think it really surprised people that it came out at all. Let alone the day that it did actually drop. That was really fun, and there was just kind of a rush and a satisfaction for me personally from getting to release something so silently and so surprisingly that if it had been leaked, definitely would have damaged that excitement. To circle back around to the main topic here.
Good segue. What are your hobbies outside the game? What brings you
I am a big Magic the Gathering player. I am on my desk right now. I'm surrounded by some Magic cards in various stages of deck completion. I play a lot of Commander, which is one of the formats that you can play in Magic, and so I have various decks in different states of completion. Sometimes in my spare time, I do deck techs, which is like I talk about the construction of a deck and how it plays and how I built it for a YouTube channel my friend runs called MTG Friends. And every Monday I get to go play Commander with my buddies at my friend's house.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Do you play competitively?
Yes, I also do draft and standard events sometimes, which is pretty fun.
Nice.
I just work a lot, so I don't always have a lot of free time.
That's fair. Are you good? Like when you compete,
Yes.
do you win consistently?
I'm usually top 3. It's usually pretty good.
In your city, state, world?
I'm in Ohio. I don't know how I rank up like competitively across all of Ohio, but at the store that I play at, I usually rank up there pretty well.
Nice. That's cool. Anything else?
I also swim, obviously. I've been swimming for the majority of my life. I swam competitively when I was in high school, and now it's just kind of a fun recreational hobby when I'm not in the water teaching children how to swim.
Well, it's good that you can still enjoy it, even when it's work.
Me too. And then I'm also a musician. I play 11 different instruments, and I sing. And every once in a while, I put something out.
What are your favorites?
I've been playing violin since I was 6, 7. So that's a big one, and then I play guitar. That's my other primary instrument. I think I'm pretty good.
Electric or acoustic?
Acoustic guitar. I mostly make like indie folk sounding music. That's a lot of what I listen to as well, so stands to reason that I'm drawn to that.
Good segue into who's your favorite musical artist?
Ooh, The National. They are the best band on earth. If anybody doesn't know who The National is, if you've heard Taylor Swift's new albums, the lead guitarist and writer for that band produced most of the songs, Aaron Dessner. He is a master. They feature on one of her newer songs as well, and just really beautiful. They're an incredible band. The lead singer has a really nice, deep baritone bass voice, and very complex, beautiful instrumentation. They're absolutely phenomenal. I've gotten to see them live a couple of times, and it's never been a disappointment. I also really love this Australian-New Zealand band called Gang of Youths. We've talked about them before on Discord, but they have this absolutely gorgeous song called Achilles Come Down, with some of the best cello work I've heard in a song in a while.
It's such good cello.
Oh, they dropped a new record a couple of months ago, and it is honestly one of the best albums of this year so far. It is beyond incredible, and I get to see them live next month. I can't wait.
Hey, congrats.
It's going to be great. I'm really big into music, so I could probably talk about artists that I love all day, every day.
I'm sure you could. That's what we're here to know.
That's a big hobby of mine. Big Death Cab for Cutie fan. I've seen them live 6 times. They're incredible as well.
Are they still touring and active?
Yes, they are. Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe it either. I've been a fan of theirs since the Narrow Stairs album, which was early 2010s, I think. And they kind of fell off for a couple of albums, weren't really making anything super great. And then one of the band members left. They brought in a couple new people, and then they put out like one of the best records they've ever made, and they've just been on a hot streak ever since. Yeah, they've been wonderful.
Very good. What has surprised you most about making Monumenta?
How dang hard it is to actually finish a script.
Really, that's surprising to you?
No, but like it is at the same time. Like I've been writing a large portion of my life, but the difference between I wrote this and turned it in for a school assignment, or I wrote this for pleasure, and I'm writing this with the intention of like publishing, air quotes, it, is so different. Like satisfied with myself versus satisfied for like mass consumption is, whew, it's a big deal. Very different. Because like you have to not just balance like this is what I want to write, but like also balance, I'm not going to say stupid, like stupid is a bad word to use here, but like you also have to balance your writing with the expectation that somebody reading it may not have read everything, all of the required context,
Sure.
and you still want it to make sense. You're not stupid for not having done that. That's not what I'm trying to say, but like you're missing context, but I still want this work to make sense. So in a sense, you have to kind of narrow it and make sure that it's still readable and still legible, and you're not using a bunch of weird words that wouldn't make sense if you hadn't read the previous 20 pages. So it's not the same as writing a book. It's not the same as writing a poem. You have to be a little more clear in each separate entry. And that was kind of a surprise to me because it was something that I hadn't really considered needing to do. But it's kind of fun. Like, how do I sneak in a bit of a recap here without making it seem like just a blatant recap for everybody that's actually paid attention or actually read the dialogue for other entries? It's fun. It's actually really enjoyable.
What's your fondest memory developing Monumenta and fondest memory playing it?
Goodness. My fondest memory playing it is so masochistic, but during closed alpha, like beta, the only dungeon in the game was Magenta. This was like pre-nerf Magenta. And the best gear you had was like some overworld rares and like tier 4s at best.
Yeah.
Whew, what an experience that dungeon was. It has left a scar on my psyche in a positive way. I absolutely loved that experience of like barely slogging through, using blocks just to block the group archers, like spamming you with arrows, knocking you back like 30 blocks every time they hit you, and poisoning you and decaying you, and you were just dying left and right. Every corner was another monstrosity. I fell for a trap and barely managed to survive it, and that was just so incredible. I genuinely love that dungeon, even though I know a lot of people hate it for the same reasons that I love it, but having to experience it in like scrounged together gear that you were barely keeping repaired, back before we had graves, back before we had like white and orange rares, it was a one hell of a dungeon. But back then, all of us playing were like masochistic CTM hardcore players. So
yeah, sure. It was a different audience.
We've been through that before.
Yeah, sure. Would you like to move to another wing of it?
Yeah, let's pop over to the living quarters, which I'll talk about a little bit too. Oh, and then I guess least favorite experience playing Monumenta. Was that one of the questions too? Favorite and least favorite? Or?
No. Favorite developing and favorite playing.
Yeah. Favorite developing. I think I mentioned this earlier too, but I think like the way that we developed the Teal quest was really crazy. Basically, the Teal team had wrapped up development before the quest team had time to get the story there. And so we split ourselves into 3 small teams, like trying to get ours for reprisal. Oh my goodness. Why am I blanking on the name of it?
Oh, shoot. I am.
Kingdom of Lies and Unmasked all out within like 3 weeks of each other. It was one hell of an endeavor because I was playing like overall editor for it, trying to make sure it all played well, while also just trying to get Unmasked out the door. So, it was hectic, but like, this is really exciting. We are making severe progress in the story. So much is happening. We get to see 3 different teams with their own takes on where this, like, what we want to tell and how their storytelling goes. It was really cool, and you can really see it still in those quests. Like, the personality of the writer really shows through, and you can tell that they were made by 3 different teams, all in really successful, cool ways. This also did not start as part of TFF. This was actually one of Cat's personal projects back when he was just on the build chart. You can barely believe it now, but back when Cat first started, I kind of I wouldn't say took him under my wing, because I am not as good of a builder as Cat Productions, but definitely really encouraged him to apply to the team and was like, hey, you're making some really incredible stuff here. You should look into contributing to the game. You're making really cool stuff and you deserve it. And dang did he! Woo! So he had started on this little library build, and Noel came to me and was like, yo, you should look at this cool thing that Cat's building. I know that you're working on other things, but talk to him, see if there's something we can do with it in the game. And I was like, hell yeah, there is, let's go. I reached out to him, and he took the initial build of this and started bringing it over, and I told him about TFF and what we were looking to do with it. And not only did he then bring this over to TFF, but he took a really major leading role in developing the dungeon and helping guide where the main room went, and really just took the lead and really pressed forward and created some really incredible content for this dungeon. I don't think it would be half as incredible without people like him and WonderSim, who really stepped up and built some fantastic things and made a really, really incredible, gorgeous build with amazing layout. All that credit goes to them, and they highly deserve it.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's just so cool. This build didn't even really need massive overhauls. He just made it more swampy or nethery in different sections. The theme that he decided to go for was it was corrupted by several different magics at once, and so different parts of it have different corruptions. And I think it turned out so cool, and you can really kind of get that visual storytelling.
I've never picked up on that. I see that now.
You've got this greenery where a nature magic hit it, but then you've got this red overgrown parts, and then you've got the kind of cyan-y colors too.
Kind of have you played Terraria?
Yeah, exactly. I've not played a lot of Terraria, but I think that was definitely a visual inspiration in some sort for him. I'm not sure if that's completely true, and feel free to contradict me there, Kat, but I love how this came together. It looks so cool. Really gorgeous builds, really cool layouts too. It's a lot of fun to play through.
Yeah, it is. When you get it.
Yeah, the rare occasions that you get this extremely elusive brand.
Yes, that totally does not just have equal weighting as the others.
It really does. I've checked the code.
The dining hall ahead of here is one of my favorite rooms in Monument.
Yes, Wonder was the lead on this one. I had specifically requested a dining hall because in Septum, one of the big centerpieces of the Ruins of Memoriam wool dungeon area was a massive dining hall in the center. The one thing that this is missing is the big clock that I had on the wall, which was one of my favorite pieces in the Septum Memorial build. But I'm not mad that it's missing. I think this dining hall is perfection. These chandeliers are just chef's kiss. So gorgeous. There's a nice little kitchen area over here too, which has a lore book, and it's just so beautifully detailed, and they knocked it out of the park. So gorgeous. Feels like the perfect capstone to this area too. It's got a fun mini boss as well, and then you get to the end.
Yeah.
It's also the only branch that doesn't have a puzzly aspect to it, which I actually think is cool. There's your straight up puzzle with the conservatory, where you have to figure out which plant foods go to the correct plants. Over in Conscriptorium, you've got to find the 3 keys. But Living Quarters is just, you get to go to battle. Good luck. I think that's kind of great. There's a variety to each of these builds.
For sure.
Oh, I broke some sweet berry.
No! What's your favorite video game, and why?
Oh, man. I want to say RuneScape, because I've played RuneScape for so dang long, but I think the answer is Guild Wars 2. It's a
what about
phenomenal MMO that I think takes all of the things that other MMOs have struggled with and found good solutions for it. It's really kind of brought this spirit of team to MMOs that have historically always felt very competitive to me. And it just does a really beautiful job with its storytelling as well. It uses a lot of just its open world and events that take place dynamically in the open world. It encourages people to work together to complete events, and everybody gets rewards for it rather than just one person who did the most damage. And I think that's just a spirit that I really want to see in more games, where rather than competing against people for resources, you get victory by becoming friendly and teammatey.
Very well said. What's your favorite movie?
Annihilation by Alex Garland.
I don't know it. When did that come out?
A couple years ago, right before the pandemic, I think. It is one of the scariest, most just insane films I've ever seen in my life.
I'll have to look into that.
It's like a sci-fi horror film, I guess, where somewhere in Florida, a shimmering dome appears over a part of wetlands. And our main character's husband was part of a team that was sent in there, and he vanishes. And then one day he turns up out of nowhere in their house with no memories of what happened. And our main character decides that she's going to go figure out what happened and joins the team to go inside. And inside, nature has like twisted.
Oh, I think I have seen bits of that. Yeah.
It's chilling and incredible, like some of the best visuals, but it had some of the best sound design I've ever heard in a film. I had the pleasure of seeing it in theaters when it first came out, and there were multiple moments where I was like transfixed because of the marriage of the visuals on the screen and just the incredible sound, like just quaking through my body. Ugh. It's something else. It's a masterpiece. And he's got a new movie coming out soon, and I can't wait.
Hooray! What do you draw from most for inspiration in developing Monumenta?
A lot of the books I read. Sometimes it's kind of creepy. Like, I'm playing Elden Ring right now, and I was kind of, like, shocked at how many, like, similar themes there are in Elden Ring in some places.
Similar to what?
To Monumenta and, like, some of the storytelling that we do. Like, it was honestly kind of funny to me every time that I, like, encounter something and somebody says something, and I go, hey, I feel like I was inspired by the same source you guys were. The one that really got me recently was when I was playing Guild Wars 2's new expansion, End of Dragons. This thing just dropped, like, a month ago. Started the month, actually. And throughout it, it uses a lot of concepts related to the void. And, like, how it's dark and it corrupts things. We've had the void in Monumenta, and it's dark and it corrupts things, but in, like, a really eerily similar way to Guild Wars 2. And I'm over here like, this was not something they had in the game before. I swear we're not ripping them off.
Yeah, after the Bungie dungeon was called Grasp of Avarice,
I
I seriously wondered if we have, like, there's some devs playing our game that we don't know.
Could not believe that. That was so wild to me.
If so, hi AAA
Hi,
devs.
Bungie.
Glad you enjoy our game.
Yeah, it was just, like, so oddly specific.
Yeah.
So, a lot of the inspirations I take is just from, like, the media that I consume. I'm a big sci-fi fantasy guy, so I've read... I read a lot of books. I read probably 100-something books every year.
Wow.
It blows me away sometimes when I, like, accidentally am using concepts that I've seen. But I just like to look at, like, the philosophical aspects of the books that I read, or some of the more interesting themes, and find ways to write themes into the game as well. Even just things like, you know, using the term the void. You know, that's not itself, like, themed around other things, but I just liked this idea of, like, there is, you know, the veil at the edge of reality that holds all of these memories and dead people into one, like, overarching theme. What happens if that's damaged? What happens to that stuff now? And how does it corrupt the world because it's not supposed to be here? And just things like Feymanu and the Elder Gods was definitely a little Lovecraftian, but not directly Lovecraftian. Like, I like the ideas of those Elder Gods, but I think it's more interesting when you look at these Elder Gods as things that are not mindless. They have a mind, they can communicate, they have wants, they have needs, but those wants and needs might not be quite understandable by us as humans, because we are not that being, we are not that race. So it's, in a sense, unknowable to us while we still see it acting upon us. I think that's really creepy and weird, and I like those kind of unknowable themes. The Crimson King storyline definitely took a lot of those elements for me too, where this strangeness that's happening around you and you're not really sure why, but something has chosen you for something that you haven't quite have any real grasp or knowledge of yet. And you're just watching these events unfold around you as something is pulling you deeper and deeper into its web. It has this sense of, like, unique helplessness to it, and I really wanted to write that theme.
Nice. Last question. This is your wild card question. Tell us
Oh, boy.
something that you wish I had asked you.
Ooh, goodness, boy.
What's something that I would never have guessed to ask you in the first place? Something
Oh, there you
interesting.
go.
However you
Goodness,
phrase it.
that is a really good question. I'm gonna have to think on this one, boy. All right. So I think my answer to that question would be, what are you most proud of in Monumenta that is outside of your normal scope of development? Like, what's an area where you went outside of your comfort zone, I guess, to make something, and you were happy with how it turned out? And my answer to that is item development. I don't do a lot of it, but when I do, it's really fun. I like making weird, out-of-the-way items that just change the game on impact, but like are super strange and require some thought on how to use, right?
You want to unpack that any further? Like, what's strange about it?
I guess just like items like Edge of Death was one of the first items that I ever made, and its original design was the first ever item in our game that used both flat and percentage on it. So it used +1 attack damage plus, I think it was 25% attack damage. So it gave you a flat buff whether you had bonus boosts or not, but then it also boosted that boost and others that you had by a percentage too. And it was just me trying to find a weird way of giving like a specific amount while still being kind of generalist, but very squishy. And I just like super weird items like that. I like finding a weird niche for an item that's never been made before, ways that make people like actively try to build around them. Crown of Unseen Knowledge is another item that I made that was kind of trying to push for the same design space, but it's also that idea of like, this item will be super useful to you if you're willing to make sacrifices and find ways to build around it. And then another one that I did pre-item rework was Failure of the Void, which was the only item in the game with such high protection values, Prot 6, but it had Curse of Corruption, so it like locked you out of most of the normal protection items that people like to use, like Heart of the Hero, and other stuff like that, and it just created a completely new build path for how you would go around getting high protection values. And I thought that was just such a fun little puzzle to build around. I also really liked making evasion items for the same reason, like finding a way to add a new evasion item that wouldn't break the game, but would force you to find like a new puzzle of how you approach evasion and what items you wanted. Those are always my favorite. Like, you give people a puzzle piece and they have to build the rest of it around them for themselves.
That's a good answer.
I don't do it a lot, but it's really fun when I do.
Nice. Well, I think that's a pretty conclusive ending. Is there anything you'd like to say as your parting words?
Just thank you for spending the time watching this. I hope you got to know me a little better, got to know my development style a little better too, and yeah, read more lore. Lore is life.
Thank y'all very much for watching.
Thank you, guys.
See ya.